Welcome to Fungos Footnotes, the podcast where baseball meets the deeper side of the game. This show is for players, parents, and coaches who care about more than just box scores. We talk development, recruiting, mindset, leadership, and the lessons baseball teaches us that last long after the final out. Because the game shapes you and the footnotes matter. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to this episode of Fungos and Footnotes. My name is Addison. Welcome back. And Coach T, always good to have a baseball conversation with you. Today, baseball is absolutely bananas, and I'm wearing my banana ball hat. It's quite nuts. And today we're going to actually have a real conversation of why baseball can actually be nuts. This is baseball beyond the box score. And so we talk about real issues and real topics that parents and players should actually take care of and think through. And so today we're going to talk about the Sandlot. We're going to talk about eligibility. We're going to touch on the MLB Draft, and actually also going to talk about the realization that parents and players should keep in mind that Division I baseball is very intense. And whenever we talk about this eligibility, whenever we talk about the draft, it's going to naturally tie into the reality of college teams as it stands moving forward based upon the most recent ruling the NCAA came out with of the eligibility clock. And so currently, as it stands prior to the NCAA ruling, was you get 5 years to play 4 years. So in layman's terms, most notably is the redshirt year. NCAA recently ruled that a player gets 5 years of 5 rounds of baseball. And so, Coach T, you've been around the game a long time. Let's just briefly talk about what is the 5 for 4 rule previously, and then we'll jump into what the new rule actually means.
Yeah, so at least at the Division I level, we had 5 years to play for, meaning you could redshirt 1 year in there. And you can still do that now in certain exceptions. They do have certain exceptions to the 5 for 5 rule now. But essentially, they're just going to say, hey, you got 5 years, right? And if you play in some or part or all of those 5 seasons, you could play 5 seasons of college baseball instead of 4. But your clock starts, so you get 5 years, and that's it. Unless you
Absolutely.
get some sort of a weird exception.
And I will say it is weird because now you can't use redshirting as a tool to save a season. They can still sit as a freshman, but it doesn't pause anything. So typically, last year, whenever you were enrolled full time in a collegiate institution, that's when your clock started. Now it's upon high school graduation or turning 19, whichever comes first, not when you set a foot on a college campus. So the
So
point is,
reclassing kids in the 6th and 7th grade may not be as advantageous as it used to be because your clock can start at 19, period.
yeah, or when you graduate high school.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Coach T, as I was reading up on this new waiver, you said weird circumstances. I would say most hardship and medical waivers are actually gone too. It's a very small scenario to where there are mitigating circumstances.
It's gonna have to be freakish, yes.
Absolutely.
We'll
That's
give you
something
that
that,
issue.
yeah, and that's something that people need to understand. Hey, guys, you're going to have to get in and get out. I will say that some quick rapid fire of who's grandfathered in. This is going to be put in play for the 2026-2027 school year. But just a high note, eligibility done by spring 26. Obviously, there's no change there. If you're currently enrolled with eligibility left, no change there. And then also high school grad for spring of 26 or 27. That's where the new rule, no opt out. And then the current waiver deadline for current athletes, those guys that are actually playing right now, July 31st of 2026. So we're about a month out from that.
Yeah, so if they want to try to appeal for an extra year, they got to do it by the end of July
Basically.
before the next school year begins.
Exactly. Yeah, probably before college enrollment actually kicks off July 31st, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, that's going to put the squeeze on a lot of high school kids for sure. The portal has already got them pretty squeezed down. When you look at junior college as an option for high school kids, and it's a great option, but the high end junior college guys, they're they're having a harder time than in years past catching on the Division One side, especially at the larger programs. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still a ton of them that do, but it's fewer than it used to be. And the mid majors, if you have a really good, successful mid major season, you're in danger of losing some kids off your roster to some major Division One programs that maybe they got a little NIL money they can give them that you don't have. And same for NAI. In a really successful NAI program this year, coach got rated pretty hard by some Division One schools. So every one of those basically forces out a high school kid or forces a high school kid to a lower level. So, and then we're not even talking about Major League Baseball yet. The high school kids are getting the squeeze put to them for sure right now.
Yeah, absolutely. From the JUCO standpoint, I love that you brought that up. Honestly, there's no more safety net, right? An old system, if you redshirted or could redshirt, or you're midseason and you're injured, right? And you think, oh man, I
Yep.
can medically redshirt now. That's gone, right? Ultimately, there's no safety net. So that's an important thing to bring about. And then also, you and I have talked before about the wild eligibility requirements. Hey, should junior college actually count at all during college play? I would say certainly that are court cases right now that are saying that JUCO
Yes.
time shouldn't count at all to your eligibility. So you're telling me
Yes.
that
So
a 28-year-old should be playing college baseball against 18? That's a 10-year difference.
the Diego Pavia deal got that junior college thing, at least while there was an injunction in place. The court order essentially, when Diego sued the NCAA to get some more years added to his total, the before they made a final ruling, the court issued an injunction against the NCAA saying that they couldn't count the junior college years against them. And I think that's all been solved now. But you're right, the safety net of other options, it's still there, but it's not as wide of a, it doesn't take as wide of a swath as it used to take for players. And let's be realistic here. You really have no recourse on the injury. Now, granted, if you were to get hurt and you were to use a redshirt year, you still have 4 years of eligibility. Same thing. You've got 5 years now. So if you get hurt, you still have 4 years of eligibility if you can make it back. So you haven't really lost anything, but a lot of players would petition for an extra year, right? If they got hurt or they redshirted for lack of play time and then they got hurt. You see it in college football a lot. So a
Yeah.
lot of freshmen don't play right out of the gate, so they take a redshirt year, and then junior year they get their knee whacked around a little bit and have to have surgery. So they petition for an extra year. From the sounds of this, that's going to be gone. Basically, you're just going to get 5, and that's all there is to it.
And
Now, again, there's some wacky cases that where you might be able to get another year, but you'd have to petition the NCAA, and who knows what's going to happen on that.
that's true. And that's the Wild West. We know that. If you've ever dealt in any type of law or followed along with court cases, it's not a short process. That's for sure. Coach T, we've talked a lot about development on this podcast. And I would just say, too, it does put into perspective, and we're going to talk about the draft and Division One baseball in just a minute, but it frames up this thought of, hey, junior college baseball is not actually a bad thing. If you're considering all things at play here, let's just say you're chasing a logo, you want to go D1, mid major, high major, doesn't matter. You got 5 years, but let's be honest, if you go start at a university, you might sit for two and play for half a season over the course of that 5 year stint at a university. The option is, hey, go to a junior college, develop for 2 years, and then you can still have 3 years of eligibility at the university level. I think that there's really focus of, hey, we should talk about that. We talk about development, but let's talk about it in perspective of this new rule, Coach T. What would you say to some players that are kind of just thinking through this? Like, how do we do this math? How do we set up our son, our daughter for success with this new ruling?
I will say in the world of the portal now that we're dealing with, it's not just limited to junior college now. Quite frankly, a lot of Division III and Division II players enter the portal and move up a level. They have a really good season and they move up to a Division I or a mid-major Division I mid-major school. I would say that's not the typical path, but it has happened. The junior college path, again, it's always been there, and you have most people don't know this, but you have levels of junior college too. You got Division I, Division II, and Division III junior college. I would say, at least in Texas, most of the Division III junior college programs are fairly competitive, and they play all the Division I schools in non-conference play. Really, all that is a limit on money. So Division III would be no money for the players. Division II would be books, tuition, and fees, no room and board. We have a lot of those in Oklahoma, Division II junior colleges in Oklahoma. And then you have Division I, which would be full scholarship, books, tuition, fees, room and board for, I think it's up to 24 players. So there's divisions in junior college as well. But if you need some development time, not just skill, right? Certainly skill is the number one factor, but physical maturity too. We got to give ourselves some time to physically mature. And we do see it often. When I was coaching junior college baseball, there there was a vast difference between the 20-year-old guy, sophomore, and the 18-year-old guy that just rolled in off the high school roster. When you're talking about physical maturity, certainly there were some guys that came right off the high school roster that were very physically mature as the 20-year-old guy or even the 21-year-old guy. When I was coaching junior college baseball, I got a few guys that spent a year at a 4-year school and still had 2 years junior college eligibility remaining. So they might be 21, but there's also a number of high school players that need an extra year just to physically mature and to catch up. And so I think you see a vast difference. And if your player is one of those players that is later to mature physically, maybe they got outstanding skill level, but they just need that time. That's a good path because you can have that opportunity. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of those junior college coaches, they put a ton of emphasis on that. Number one, they get to play all fall. And so, where the 4-year schools have a limited amount of time, how much they can play in the fall. But the junior college coaches, in addition to playing all fall, they really get after it in the weight room and they work hard. They've got a large window of time in the fall season. And so a lot of those coaches really are dedicated to helping those players improve themselves physically and get more bigger, faster, stronger. And that's a good option for a player who might be a high skill player, but slightly behind on the physical maturity side.
Absolutely. And I would say that this is the collision point of the entire episode that we're talking about today. Whenever college baseball adds a fifth year of eligibility and basically removes the red shirt safety valve, MLB is proposing to shrink its draft to 720 total picks across domestic and international, and then also force every player through at least 2 years of college baseball first, which makes high schoolers ineligible for the domestic draft, making the minimum 2 years removed from high school graduation. Coach T, I know that we've had some offline conversations about this. Let's just open this door of college eligibility and this crazy thing of the MLB draft and all the chaos that might ensue coming up for the fall.
Once again, we're just coming off of all of the COVID extensions that all the players got. High school kids really got squeezed hard during that time. College baseball and 18-year-old guys couldn't find a spot because given more years to these players for COVID purposes. And so we just got past all that. We've got almost all those players filtered out now. It should open the doors back up for the high school kids. And just when you start to feel like, hey, we're going to have a for the high school players, now we're going to take those high school draftees and eliminate them from the draft. And they've already squeezed the draft down. At one time, it was like 50 rounds, and then they bump it down to 20. And now they're talking 700 and something players. That's going to be like 12 rounds. They're going to knock it back, and they're going to include the international players in that and no high school players. So now you're talking about a large number, and it's not always a huge number of high school players that actually sign. They may get drafted, but they don't actually sign. You're going to add those players back into the high school mix of also looking for college opportunities. It's really going to put the squeeze on high school kids just in general. Now, do I like the idea of a couple of years of college ball before you're eligible for the NCAA draft? I would say, as a citizen, yes. As a coach, maybe, because I think that's a case by case basis. Because let's be realistic, school's just not the spot for a lot of kids, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. It just isn't. They're not going to succeed in that setting. And if they've got the skill that it takes to get there, I think they should get the opportunity.
Yeah.
But I would say for the vast majority of players, school is going to be a bonus. And school is the setting for the vast majority of players. But you always have that fringe that, you know, that's just not going to be a place where they can succeed. And so we've eliminated possibly some opportunity for some players there who just aren't going to fit well in the college setting. And that's not to say that's a bad thing. Look, there's a lot of people in this world who have very productive jobs that didn't go to school. The job that I work, I quite honestly didn't need the degree that I have for that job, and certainly have other jobs, firefighting and nursing come to mind because those are closest to me. Yeah, they require some schooling, but there's a lot of places that you can learn on the job and on the fly and lead a productive life. I don't think it's a bad thing from the citizen standpoint that everybody gets a couple of years of school, but I do think there's going to be a couple of three players here and there that get overwashed because the school setting is just not a good setting for them. And then is that going to be the rule for international players? Because probably not. We sign international players consistently at the age of 16. And are we putting those international players ahead of potential American workers? I know that's a small workforce. Professional baseball is a small workforce, but are we putting the international worker in front of the American worker to a small degree? Absolutely. And as an American, I'm not necessarily a fan of that, but I'm just one person, so I don't think I can do anything about that.
Yeah, but I think this is also a realistic expectation for parents and players to know, hey, we're talking a global thing, an international thing. I played with some great Venezuelans and Puerto Ricans on my college team, and they were great guys and they were great players. But the reality is, you can't just think domestically when it comes to sports, specifically in college. Look at the Olympics, or not the
Yeah.
Olympics, look at the World Cup right now, right? If you look at the American team right now, truly, how many Americans are on the team? Like, you have to be able to understand that it's not just you living in your bubble of high school sports, which is not
Right.
a bad thing. It's just zooming out, bigger picture. It's okay to have conversations like this where you can actually understand it's not just about me. There are a lot of things legally at play for you as a player, but then also reframing what the draft actually looks like.
And I do think probably maybe if we could pull back the curtain, I think the international player signing ability, opening that window even larger. Don't get me wrong, it's already a huge part of professional baseball, but pulling back the curtain there and cutting back on the draft itself is a measure. And I could be wrong. I'm just spitballing some ideas here, but it's a measure to cut back overall payroll for teams in general. They usually can sign those international players for a little bit less money. And I think part of the reason for that is I do think most people in the baseball world feel pretty confident that we're probably going to have either a strike or a lockout in 2027. And a lot of it stems from teams, large market teams, having basically unlimited funds for free agent signees. And if we can cut down on the overall pool of players and shrink it down and make it smaller and have essentially the required amount of money that teams would need to spend, we can raise the floor for the smaller market teams. And I do think they'll probably end up looking at some way to put a cap on the larger market teams so we can get more of a competitive balance. So we don't
Mm.
have to watch the Dodgers in the World Series every year. Now, I do happen to like the Dodgers quite a bit. So quite a few players on that Dodger team I like. But I would like to see some variety too.
Hey,
I am a
variety
Ranger
is
fan, and
good.
we are a small market team. So
Yeah, absolutely. You started talking about finances just to put a couple things into perspective with this MLB update. The signing bull, we're talking about the draft. So signing bonus pool actually is nearly cut in half, roughly 400 million. Now it's down to 200 million. And then an additional thing that they did was the undrafted player bonus cap. Now it's $10,000 max. Formerly, after round 11 in the draft, is up to $150,000 today. So, what translation is two things. One, you've got more players staying in college longer, fighting over a shrinking number of MLB spots. And then also, if you go back to what the Players Association says, their response was actually blunt and quite funny. They say it strips over 1 billion, that's B as in billion, not M as in million, in amateur compensation from players over the next 5 years. So
yeah.
you touched on a lockout could potentially be real. I would say that this is just some quick stats and numbers whenever you're talking about numbers of draftees and then also financially.
Yeah, and I think what Major League Baseball is thinking is, hey, if we cut back on this money, the smaller market teams will have an equal shot at international players because we're capping them at 10,000 on these signees. What the Major League Baseball Players Association is saying is, hey, you're robbing us blind. We can't let you do that. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of haggling, and who knows how this is going to turn out. But from our perspective, since we're more geared toward the youth side, and when I say youth here, normally 14 and under for youth, but we also cover high school. We're looking at increasing the pool size again for high school kids. They're really getting the number of opportunities really get squeezed. And we don't want to deter anybody here with our podcast. We want to grow the game, absolutely. But one thing that I think a lot of parents are going to and players are going to have to consider is ultimately physicality wins out most of the time in the recruiting game. And you can have a really high skill level and be on the smaller stature side on the physicality. And if that looks to be your where your player fits into the world, now's the time to get started. Now's the time to get in that weight room. Look, we don't have to be a huge human being to be strong and play the game physical. Did you have some numbers like Division One averages there?
I
Yeah.
yes, I do. It's actually quite interesting whenever you talk about the stature of Division 1, specifically pulling data from the 8 teams in Omaha right now. Whenever you look at that, typical is pitcher 6'2", 6'3", average weight 205, 215. Catcher is about 6 foot, 190, 210. Corner infield is about 6'1", 208. Middle infield 5'11", 186, and outfield is about 6 foot, 196.
Now, I don't have any data on high school, but I would say the average high school middle infielder is probably 5'9", 175. Now, if you're in that range and you are a middle infielder and you want to play college baseball, we're not here to deter you. But you can play the game physically, but you got to get in that weight room and do it. And I think we've talked about this before too. Caloric intake, United States, the government's going to tell you 2,000 calories is a standard American diet or whatever, 2,500, whatever that number is. But I can tell you right now that if you are a active high school athlete playing any sport, you need 3,500 calories and you need
Mhm.
at least bare minimum 8 hours of sleep. I don't think our high school athletes in today's world get either. They don't bring in enough calories to gain weights while they all struggle gaining weight. And then the excuse is, oh, their metabolism. It's a simple math problem, right?
Yeah.
You're burning more than you're taking in, so you're not going to gain any weight, right? So you want to gain weight, you got to take in more than you burn. So, and then sleep. Our body recovers and rebuilds, and when we're in our sleep cycle, and honestly, most people don't get enough sleep. Those are things that we can attack right now as parents and as players, and then certainly the weight room, even
Yeah.
junior college. I looked at the junior college numbers, right? Outfielders, 6 foot, 190. Middle infield, 5'10 and a half, 175 to 180. Corner infield catchers, 6'1, 200. So we need to, if we're serious about wanting to have an opportunity to play college baseball as a high school kid, we need to be dedicated not only on developing our skills and our talent, that's certainly important, but we've got to be able to get in that weight room and give our body some good nutrition and put on some weight and get bigger and get more physical. That's just part of it,
And it also,
unfortunately. But
yeah, that's the reality of it. But also, T, I would just love to encourage those guys that are listening and parents. If you dedicate yourself to the outcome of, hey, I'm going to get the best outcome in my high school and collegiate career that I can, then you're going to set yourself up for success because less than 2% of college athletes are actually going to make it to the professional ball
oh, yeah.
club. But if you take that into consideration, the NCAA, since we're talking about them, they have the most famed headline of almost all of us will go pro in something other than sports. Nationally, there are 500,000 plus NCAA athletes. And then if you flip that, 98% will go pro in something other than sports. And so I love what you're talking about getting bigger, faster, stronger. That's only going to help you in the real world as well, right? There's a standpoint of, hey, we want to play college sports, but there's also the realization that should not be our sole identity of like, it's the
Well, I
whole thing
think,
we focus on.
yeah, personally, the discipline that it takes, if that's your goal, is to play college sports, and you have the discipline that it takes to eat right, get plenty of sleep, find the time to get in the weight room, while at the same time working on your skill set, right? If you're that organized and you develop that mentality, then when you do hit the working world, you're going to carry those same traits, that discipline and that organization and that drive. And that's going to make you more productive in the workforce. Even if you didn't play Division I college baseball, you had to play Division III college baseball, and you really want to play Division I, those traits stay with you though. So you develop that discipline and that hunger and that desire and that will to succeed and that organizational skill, all of those things. And so they do in the game of life prepare you and guide you to success.
Coach C, I have a tangible example of what you just talked about. The founder of a nonprofit that I've worked for, he said that he wants to fill his staff with undersized left-handed pitchers that played high competitive Division II baseball. Because that was me. That was me. He's Addison, I knew that there was something different about you. And now that I know, it makes total sense. But that's tangibly what it is, right? Studying on the bus, getting up at 6 a.m. for fall workouts, grinding it out, 40 games in the
Yeah.
fall in junior college, and then moving into the spring season of 60 to 80 games.
Yep.
Baseball is a grind that people don't realize it is. And then they get in it and they're like, oh, this is actually
The guy's
tough.
going with taking those undersized guys, but I'm not sure about the left-handed pitching thing. Love left-handed pitching on the field, but left-handers are different. In general, they're just different. Not sure if I buy in fully on the left-handed thing.
What if I told you I was ambidextrous? Would that change your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Be like Donnie Baker, you just be basically amphibious.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. See, guys, we can keep it light here. The most important thing is that whenever you think about baseball beyond the box score, it truly is something that we want to equip you with. And that is really why if you tie it all together, we've talked about the runway to professional baseball really just got longer and more uncertain. And also, the runway through college baseball got longer and more load bearing, right? You got 5 for 5. And then I would say also that makes your development as a high school athlete wanting to play college baseball obviously take it serious, number one. But number two, I would have that conversation like Coach T and I have just now of what does it take to play college baseball and what is my best runway as an individual athlete? Coach T, you and I were actually talking about just the perception, the false reality of where we stand as a player, right or wrong, right? We just consume content, socials, right? We have a limited bias as to what our high school team looks like. And so we really don't zoom out a lot. But I always love to end episodes with encouragement for athletes. So, coaches, we've talked a lot about the draft, the new timeline for the NCAA. What would be some closing words for you for these youth athletes today?
Well, first of all, if you find yourself one of those players of a little smaller stature, again, we can't do anything about that necessarily. We're not going to make ourselves grow 6 inches in 2 years if we don't have that body type. That's fine. If we can work on our skill set, we can get our skill set for whatever sport we're playing, but baseball, softball, what we talk about most here, we can improve our skill set and get our skill set to an elite level. And we can still do the other things that we talk about. We can get good sleep. We can take care of our business in the classroom. We can get in the weight room and get strong and be a physical player, even though we may not be 6'2", 200. And through sheer will and determination, we can earn a spot.
Yeah.
So I think everybody has the tools within them. They just have to find a way to bring them out for the most part. Now, look, it's a very select group. I understand baseball is a very difficult sport. It's one of the hardest things to do in all sports. Hit a round ball with a round bat, square. And there's very few jobs in this world where you can be 30% successful and be any kind of success. But in baseball, you can do it. We have to have that good mentality. But I think if we have the dedication that it takes, we can, just like we can on most endeavors in life, we can earn a spot if we're willing to get after it.
Absolutely. None of the reasons that we've talked about is a reason to stop chasing it. It's actually exactly what you just said. There's a reason and purpose for us to play sports, right? To learn those life lessons and have fun and be on a team that we're not individually focused. The only thing that I would say, Coach T, is let's chase this dream of college baseball with our eyes open and continue to wrestle with these ideas. Where you as a player stand in all of this, and obviously as a parent navigating baseball, collegiate baseball, as well as other sports, it's not where you hope you stand. It's where you actually stand right now as a player, develop well, and have a clear roadmap for where you want to go and what you want to do. Coach T, it's been an awesome session with you today. For those that are listening, we'll see you next
Yes,
time.
just kind of hit a little bit of everything today.
A lot of the sandbox. We're like the bad news bears, but obviously it's the bad news bears with a purpose. So that's it for this episode of Fungos and Footnotes. Players, keep swinging it. Parents, keep making it happen for those kiddos. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to Fungos and Footnotes. This episode helps you see the game or your role in it a little more clearly. Share it with someone who loves baseball too. Subscribe, follow along, and stay connected, because the game doesn't just reveal talent, it reveals character, and the footnotes matter.